welcome back to Susilifts, the channel that is actually trying to give you fitness advice. And today we are talking about a topic that I get asked from many women, especially the women who go to the gym to achieve the typical thick and curvy look. And and this question is, how do I get rid of my hip dips? So if you didn't know what hip dips are, I'm gonna show you real quick. Hip dips pretty much are the dip between like your stomach and then your legs, and there's like your hip, and you have a little dip right here. I don't have it that strong because it's really hard for me to show you, but like right here. Just to like start off, hip dips are not a bad thing, and I think hip dips look really fucking cute because hip dips make you look very harsh and edgy and not round. That's why many people are bothered by it. But at the same time, especially when a female bodybuilder is very lean, I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. Like your waist and then your hip, and it just looks very hard. Your quads look bigger and like more square looking, like it looks harder. So I'm not sitting here to shame women with hip dips. I'm not sitting here to say hip dips aren't pretty or you need to get rid of them, but I'm sitting here to help you guys, because if you type in how to get rid of hip dips on YouTube, you only get videos promoting outside rotation exercises or hip abduction exercises. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. So what do I mean by that? I mean exercises like hip abduction work, like on the abductor machine, where you push your legs out, like you do this movement, or fire hydrants where you move your leg up like this. So you always hit this area right here. It does the work for you. People who don't really know a lot about the human body and how it's like built and constructed, they think, okay, I have a dip right in my hip area, so what am I going to do to get rid of it? I'm going to train that area. Well, the thought process is not completely wrong, because if you have some type of asymmetry somewhere, you train it to get rid of it. But that's not how it works with this. So the muscles that go like from your waist over your hip to your quad down here, you have three muscles, of course, like two glute muscles, which are the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus. And there's also a muscle which is called the tensor fasciae latae, and it's like sitting from like right here to down here. So it's the muscle that comes like down here, and that's what we want to train. At least we think we want to train it to get rid of the dip that is right here, but that's not the truth. Why? If we strongly isolate the gluteus medius, which sits like right here, we build that muscle up. But the problem here is that the gluteus medius does not go from like your waist to your quad in one, but it only sits at the top, like right here. So if you have hip dips, you actually want to get rid of the area between the gluteus medius and where your quad is starting. So here's the gluteus medius, your quad is starting here, and this is the dip area. And the gluteus medius is on top of that. And that is what outside rotation movements actually train, like doing the abductor machine of fire hydrants, what we spoke about earlier, like a lot of cable work and stuff like that. Just outside rotation movements. Train this muscle and isolate it and make it grow. So, but what does it do, as we just said? It makes this one muscle bigger, but it doesn't actually get rid of the dip. It actually makes it appear stronger because the area on top of it is bigger. So the dip is becoming stronger logically. So how can you correctly isolate the tensor fasciae latae, so the muscle that sits like from here to down here? You don't do it by doing outside rotation movements, but the opposite. You do inside rotation movements like adductor training. If you actually want to balance out your hip dips, it is important that you step back on outside rotation movements. And by that I don't mean not training it at all, because outside rotation movements are great for glute development, and that is what many people strive for, because like all those fit chicks, and I'm so sorry for always shaming them, but like it bothers me so much that people who aren't qualified and don't actually know a lot about the human body give out such specific advice to such a huge audience and just tell them stuff that isn't true, like giving out wrong information, and it just really bothers me. And as I just said, it's great for glute development because you hit like all the areas of the glutes. You train like the normal like glutes, the gluteus maximus and stuff, and then with the outside rotation movement you train the gluteus medius, the minimus, but you strongly develop the upper side of your glutes. So you actually get this little ball. Strongly isolating the gluteus medius makes the upper side of your glute just really big, like out here and stuff. And if you strongly train it, of course it gives you the illusion of a very strongly developed glute, but it does not give you the round hip that so many people want. Also, there's one very important point connected to hip dips, which is love handles. So it's the fat that sits like down here, so like your muffin top and stuff, that fat right here. Of course it makes hip dips appear stronger. Why? Like imagine having more fat up here. Of course it will make the area here look bigger, and then the area here will look smaller again, so you get like here and then it curves in and it goes out again and you have the hip dips. So if you're someone who carries a lot of fat in that area and you want to get rid of the hip dips, I strongly recommend starting with fat loss. So just diet down, lose those pounds that bother you up here, so your hip dips will just appear smaller and your hips will appear rounder in general because your waist is just slimmer and it goes in like one line. Like it doesn't go like this, but it just goes like this, and that's what you want to achieve: a round looking hip and a small looking waist and that curvy body thing. So last but not least, real talk here, hip dips and round hips are genetics. So some people have strongly developed hip dips just because they were just born with it, and some people have very round hips just because they were born with it. Also, fat contribution on your body, where your body stores the fat. Some people are lucky and the body stores their fat exactly in this spot in between the two muscles that creates the hip dips. So they store their fat exactly beneath the gluteus medius and they fill in that gap, and so they have a round hip. That's not something you can influence. I don't care how much you train, you cannot change your genetics, but you can always work around it and build like the illusion of differently looking hips and like build the illusion of smaller hip dips. Genetics always play a big role in bodybuilding, of course, but they don't make things impossible for you. And even though you cannot get fully rid of them, you can work around it and make them appear smaller with what I said, like cutting out too much outside rotation and hip abduction movement, building in more inside rotation, also focusing more on just training the gluteus maximus, isolating it, doing compound movements, training quads and hamstrings, all of that, because that will also give you a more balanced look. And also, of course, if you want to have your hips looking bigger, then it's always good to have your waist looking very small. So that means if your only goal is that type of body shape, of course, first build the muscle and stuff. Just, I can't really tell you what to do because I don't know your exact goals, but like you just need to look out for always being quite lean if you want to have that small waist. Of course, waists as well are genetics, but the leaner you are, the smaller your waist will look. The bigger your shoulders are and your lats are, the smaller your waist will look, because you're like big on here, and so you will look smaller down here, and then your hip will appear rounder because it will look bigger again, if you know what I mean. So also, if you are very serious about this, get yourself a good lifting belt or waist trainer, because they do work. Like, saying they don't work is stupid, because they do work. You just shouldn't overdo it, and inform yourself about it. I will actually think about making a whole video on waist training, what it does and stuff, but that's just a little recommendation on the side here. To sum everything up, to minimize your hip dips, you need to cut down on outside rotation and hip abduction movements. Don't isolate them too crazily, don't do them too heavily and all the time. Like, focus on the basics, like training the gluteus maximus a lot, the quads, the hamstrings, as we just said. Also, if you have very strong love handles, try to lose the fat around that area so your hip dips will look smaller. And the third point is, it's genetics. It's not ugly, it's nothing bad. It actually shows, a lot of the times it actually shows muscle definition, because if you want to have a strongly developed upper glute, you will have strongly developed hip dips. So it's not a bad thing. just think about it like that. Hip dips are not something negative, but if you want to minimize them, stop relying on actually training the hip area. That was it from me, you guys, because there's nothing more to talk about in this video. I wanted to keep it short and quick and I wanted to keep it short and quick and informative, just for you guys to understand the mistake that so many women make when it comes to hip dips and like training them away and like actually making them bigger and stuff. So I think we all understood that now, and we can all correct our gym mistakes, and it's nothing bad to not know something, especially if it's not that publicly accessible. Like, this information right here is something only people would know who actually know something about the human body. And actually I knew that, but I never really thought about telling other people because I never really got the question so much, like the hip dips kind of stuff, until I saw a video by like a German bodybuilding coach, and he talked about that, and I thought, isn't that like common knowledge that you don't train that area that excessively to get rid of hip dips? And obviously it wasn't, because people give out such wrong information when it comes to topics like that. If you like this and if you didn't actually know what I told you right now, you always made that mistake, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, share it to your female friends or also male friends who have the same problem and who want to get rid of it, just to share knowledge, because that's what we do here on this channel. We share knowledge. I hope you guys are having a great day, and we'll have a great training if you hit the gym today, and we'll have a great meal, and I hope you're all really happy, and I will see you next time coming around my channel. And thank you very much for taking time out of your day to watch my video and to support me. Don't forget to follow my Instagram, which is linked below, and it will appear on the screen like somewhere around here. See you next time on Susilifts, the channel that is actually trying to give you fitness advice, and goodbye.